Alrighty, let's talk about what you're doing right this second. Probably sitting down, phone right next to you, obviously watching this video of your favorite people in the world. Just kidding. Do you feel alive? Well, hopefully, because if you don't, I would definitely call the doctors immediately. No, but seriously, we talk about this idea of living in the moment a lot. And although you might have heard other people talk about it before, I want to talk about it much more in depth today, because of not only the way that it will help you enjoy your life more, but it can actually help us distract ourselves away from the anxiety that we're feeling. For me, this is honestly the main way that I get rid of my anxiety, so I know it's got to work for at least a few of you. Sometimes remembering to put yourself in the present moment is super hard, especially when your brain is overwhelmed. When we get overwhelmed, we tend to think on autopilot about all the different possibilities and the ways that we're going to survive what we have been perceiving as overwhelming. And when our brain just goes on autopilot, it's really common to think things are a bigger deal than they really are. So how did I keep myself from entering that autopilot state? Being present. Like, overly present. And this has to do with the idea of taking control of what you are thinking about. So much of anxiety, at least for me, is caused by feeling out of control. So when you're able to take that control back, it can really help. There's a couple ways to do this, but first let me tell you a story about how I learned it. When I was 16, my buddy Nate read a book on Zen Buddhism. No, sadly, I'm not going to teach you about how to be a Buddhist today. But in this book, there was a really cool practice that I still use to this very day. So imagine this. We were walking out of a movie theater and he told us to sit down on a bench facing the front of the building. So, Colby and I were kind of confused, but we took a seat wondering why the heck our friend was about to lecture us. And Nate asked us, "What do you see?" Don't tell me out loud, just think. What do you actually see right now? In my head, I was definitely a little bit weirded out, but I went along with it. I was like, hey, okay. I see a door. I see people walking in and out of this movie theater. I see that big LED sign that says AMC. I got into a little more detail. I said, okay, now I see the birds that are flying and the plants that are on the side of the building and some moss on the right-hand side of this brick wall. Give us maybe 30 seconds. Then he asked, what do you feel? Really feel where you are right now. Sat there, again, still a little weird. I thought about the fact that the air and the wind was hitting my arm. The fact that my feet were pressed against the pavement. I almost felt like I could feel everything so much more because I was so focused on the present moment. Then he told us to take a couple of deep breaths and feel the air coming in and out of your lungs. I had never thought about it like that before. This is kind of odd, but he just had us sit there and over telling us to feel our senses and focus on the moment and the true reality of a couple kids on a bench in the front of a theater. Nate said something like, I feel like we never really notice that we are alive. We don't notice all the amazing things that are going on all around us all the time. We hardly notice how crazy it is just to be a breathing human chilling in Kansas. So after about 20 minutes of us taking in what seemed just like a random glimpse of my life, I realized that day I would remember that moment forever. It was one of the first times I had truly felt alive and present. And in his book, this was described as a practice of being Zen, being peaceful. And what was really crazy was for a solid 20 minutes sitting on the bench, I was at peace with the current moment. I didn't have anxiety. I wasn't worried about my homework or my job at IHOP. I was just focused on being alive. And nowadays, when I notice myself living in my thoughts, when I'm laying in bed overthinking or stressed out over some ish I have to do, I just take a few minutes to live in the moment. I ask, what do I see, feel, hear? Who am I in this crazy world right now? And this helps me for a bunch of different reasons. Like I said, living in the moment helps me to stop thinking about anything stressing me out because I can focus on something else. But it also helps me enjoy myself. Whether I'm working and just end up liking my work a little better, or if I'm at a concert and I just want to have more fun. And lastly, it helps me remember that feeling. There are so many times we get lost in the problems of our lives day to day, lost in the anxiety and the stress of our jobs, or honestly just lose track of our journey and hardly ever look around. It's kind of sad. But living in the moment could help you really appreciate life and distract your mind from that anxiety. Okay, now after explaining, I want you to do two things. One right now, and then one later. First thing I want you to do is pause this video in a few seconds and really live in your current surroundings. I know it might not be glamorous or crazy and you might just be chilling in your room, but when is the last time that you really felt like you were alive in the current moment, not looking back on something? And then number two, I want you to set a reminder once a day to try to live in the moment. Whether that's at school or work or they're hanging out with friends, anything. And it can be all in your head. You don't have to make it weird, okay? Don't like say, oh, I see the birds and all this stuff. Like, you know, just do it in your head. It's cool. What I'm trying to say is just try it out. To give you an example of this in just like everyday life, a few weeks ago, I was with a bunch of friends and realized I really wanted to remember this moment as being really happy. So while all my friends were just on my couch bantering back and forth about who knows what, I just sat there taking everything in, looking at the people around me, listening to what each person was saying, feeling myself in that group of people, and like smelling all the weird smells about the other people in the room. But not only do I remember being happy because I was so present, I still vividly remember that picture of my friend group on my apartment couch. And that memory reminds me to appreciate being with friends. The last thing that I want you to do is write down a few moments in your past that you felt the most alive. Put them in your journal or in your notes or in your phone or wherever. And then whenever you feel overwhelmed, you can remind yourself of that time that you felt most alive. Distract yourself. Let me know how it goes. I love doing this, so hopefully you do too. You got this.